Stephan Bonnar alongside Matthew Holt. Welcome to the final round. UFC 214, biggest card of the year, coming up Saturday right here in Vegas. Oh, sorry, in California.
I wish it was in Vegas. I'd be going.
Yeah, usually the big ones are here. So I was thinking it was, but no. At the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, for Jones versus Cormier 2. And Cormier about a 2.5 to 1 underdog. I was a little surprised to see that big. I was thinking, hey, he'd be like plus 150.
And the odds have been all over the place. It's been as low as minus 200, as high as minus 300, settling kind of in the middle most times. You know, I showed you my ticket. I had minus 260 today, but it's kind of been all over the place. And this is kind of one of those pros versus Joes scenario where the big bets from known MMA bettors are coming in on Jon Jones. But there's actually more bets coming in on Daniel Cormier. And a lot of people are like, well, why are so many people betting Cormier? It's kind of like the same reason they're betting Cormier. When you take the combination of a big underdog, plus people like to bet what they want to happen, and let's face it, Jones is the bad guy here.
Heel.
Jones is the heel. Cormier's the face. People are like, well, I can get the good guy at plus money, and they're betting Cormier. But I could say the big bets are coming in on Jon Jones.
Yeah, I like Jon Jones. I'll be rooting for Jones in this fight. I hope he's going to win. But just that plus 240, I got Cormier. I just put a little something down, and that'll kind of, if that one hits, I'm risk-free on my other bets. So that was the strategy.
And I could see it. And look, I was on a show with someone earlier, and they were talking about the fight, and they made a lot of good points of maybe how Cormier could overcome some of the obstacles, with all his preparing for the fight. That basically Cormier has had 2 years plus now to think about, hey, Jon Jones whipped me the first time. What do I need to do different to actually overcome and beat Jon Jones? And I think in Cormier's mind, he wants it. I think the desire's there, the motivation's there. I think the physical limitations and difference are going to be too much. The pace that Jon Jones keeps up is better than any pace we've ever seen from a light heavyweight. I mean, it's just non-stop pressure pace.
And a little birdie mentioned that Cormier was a little heavy, so he might be cutting a lot of weight for this fight, and he won't be getting away with a little towel gate like he did in New York City. You think that may come into play in the later rounds?
I do, and let's face it, this isn't New York this time. He's going to have to make 205, and if he spends his entire Friday morning running in trash bags, that sure isn't going to help him for Saturday. As we know, Jon Jones always makes weight, never has any trouble making weight, and Jones is so much big. What people don't realize is Jon Jones has a 12-inch reach advantage in this fight. I mean, he has so many physical advantages. I love Cormier, but he's pushing 40, and look, granted, Daniel Cormier is 4-0 since the Jones loss. But the Gustafsson fight was really close. Mm-hmm. In the first fight, he got crunched by a huge right hand by Rumble Johnson, overcome it and submitted him. The last Rumble Johnson fight, I don't know what he was doing.
High kick to the face in the second fight.
Yeah, that's right.
He overcame it and ate it. His chin. That's what, after that fight, I was impressed with more than anything.
Yes.
The fact that he ate that shin.
He's ultra durable, but I just don't know that his offensive output is enough to beat Jon Jones if he can't take Jon Jones down.
Yeah, I mean, I see Jones win decision in this fight, but hey, if I'm wrong, then I win money, so it won't be all that bad.
That's right. I mean, I could see all the reasons for Cormier to win. I just feel like a 30-year-old Jon Jones, as motivated as he's ever been in his career. And Jon Jones has the things you can't teach. He comes from an ultra-athletic family. He has the perfect MMA build, which you can't teach you how you're born with your body.
And it's hard to find training partners with 85-inch reaches.
That's right.
And if they are, they're probably slow and awkward
and
not as coordinated and fast and explosive.
And it's not just the way he throws strikes with that reach or how he uses front kicks to dedicate range. But when you do get close, he throws as good of elbow strikes as anybody I've ever seen in that weight class.
Yeah, that left lead elbow where he claws the hand comes across. He does that better than anyone in the division, in my opinion.
So, I mean, I don't know what happens that much different from the first fight. Because I thought, hey, they pushed a good pace in the first fight. I thought several of the rounds were competitive, but clearly Jon Jones rounds. And in round 4, it looked like Cormier started to gas a little bit because he took all of round 4 off. So, I mean, what's different this time around?
Agreed. So, hey, I got a little money on Cormier, but hearts with Jones.
I got a lot of money on Jones.
Yeah, you do. Co-main event, Demian Maia versus Tyron Woodley. No surprise here. Woodley a 2-1 favorite in this fight. And really, Maia, this is the type of fighter he has trouble beating. Guys he can't out-wrestle. And I don't think he's going to be able to get this fight to the ground with Woodley.
I bet Woodley twice already. And look, you and I both like to bet underdogs, but I really feel strongly. I might even feel more strongly about Tyron Woodley winning this fight than I do about Jon Jones beating Cormier.
Definitely.
Woodley is the exact problematic fighter for Demian Maia. Let's look at his last 4 losses. Rory McDonald, Jake Shields, Chris Weidman, Mark Munoz, all elite-level wrestlers. When Demian Maia can't get you down, he has major, major problems winning fights.
That's a good point you just made. If you're tempted to pick Jones because you just want that win at minus 265, think again and take Woodley at minus 210. It's a better deal, and I think it's more of a lock.
And it's the same situation in terms of age and everything. Maia is actually, I think, a year older than Daniel Cormier. He's 39. I think Cormier's 38. And Maia has more limitations than Cormier does. Cormier actually can stand and strike. We saw him stay on his feet the entire time and strike with Gustafsson, so we know he can do it and win at an elite level. Demian Maia certainly cannot stand and strike with Tyron Woodley and win this fight. And he has a tendency to gas. Let's face it, Demian Maia never fights 5-round fights. You go back to the last time he actually fought into the 5th round against Ryan LaFleur, he was just dropping to his back because he couldn't stand up, trying to like pull guard, or the ref had to keep standing him up like, come on, and he could barely stand. I mean, he just can't go that long. There's a lot of advantages for Tyron Woodley here. The only shot I think Demian Maia has, and we talk about the puncher's chances, somehow he gets Woodley down round 1, and gets his back and chokes him.
And falls.
Something, yeah. They get into a scramble. He ends up on top, scrambles to his back, and gets him. Other than that, I think not only do I think Tyron Woodley wins this fight, I think he could stop him.
Yeah, I think so too. Woodley hits hard. He's dangerous. You saw him knock Robbie Lawler out cold. So if you're looking for a favorite to bet or looking for a fight to add to your parlay, this is a good one. Tyron Woodley, minus 210. Much better deal than Jones at minus 265. Now, Tonya Evinger against Cyborg, Justino now. I almost called her Cyborg Santos, but she's no longer with the Mr. Cyborg.
Yes.
So it's back to her maiden name, Justino. And
how's Mr. Cyborg's skull these days?
Woof. He's taking some nasty knockouts, that knee. My goodness. But she's a minus 1,200 favorite in this fight. There's no way Evinger's going to win. But you kind of think the over 1.5 rounds at plus money might be the way to go.
So I think a lot of people are discounting Evinger a little bit. Look, I don't think she's going to win either. But just because she's never fought in the UFC, at a women's featherweight, which is a brand new division, having never fought in the UFC is not that big of a detriment. Where she has fought the vast majority of her career is in Invicta. And if you're not going to fight in the UFC as a women's, Invicta is the place to be. And she's fought some serious competition over there. Look, she's 36 years old now, but she appears to be durable. And I like this fight to maybe go over 1.5 rounds. And technically what I'm saying is Tonya Evinger needs to last 7 minutes and 31 seconds in the ring with Cyborg, and if she does, you get that at plus 220. And in a 5-round title fight, look, this is the title they made for Cyborg. Yeah, what's the hurry? Yeah. I just need Evinger. You just need her to get on her bicycle a little bit and move around. You get through a round and a half, and you can get plus 220.
Not a bad bet. And moving down,
I mean, you're not going to lay minus 1,200. I mean, because
that's
what if something fluky happens? Look, there's been 2 fights in the last couple of months. Michael Chandler on the Bellator pay-per-view, and then again this Tuesday on the Dana White Contender Series to Jason Jackson, who, by the way, I did bet this Tuesday and lost, who clearly won round 1, clearly looked like he was going to win the fight and suffered a bad ankle injury and got KO'd. I mean, at minus 1,200, fluke things could happen. I wouldn't want to be on the hook for that kind of price.
Robbie Lawler, Donald Cerrone, and hey, Robbie Lawler about a minus 150 favorite. He's up to minus 160 now, favorite in this fight. I had him picked in this fight. But this is one of those fights I'm kind of staying away from. Not a bad bet, though, if you're cool with minus 160.
Look, this fight we've been waiting for so long, and we've talked about so many cards in the UFC where the card has gotten worse due to injuries. Here's an instance where this card got better because of the injury to Donald Cerrone before, that fight getting bumped from May all the way till now. Now we end up with a super card here. Look, I've looked at this fight a lot of times, and I think the more times I look at it, I know for sure there's no possible way I'm taking Cowboy Cerrone here. But I don't like the fact that Lawler's changing camps, and he's no longer working with Pat Miletich, and I don't know how much motivation he has anymore. But if you look at all his physical advantages, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's coming down from 85, where Cerrone's coming up from 55. Yeah. Cerrone is 4-6 in the UFC, 4-6 against southpaws. He doesn't do well against southpaws, and there's no bigger puncher at southpaw than Robbie Lawler. And Donald Cowboy Cerrone has trouble with big power punchers anyway. Look at the guys who beat him. Rafael Dos Anjos twice. Nate Diaz totally outboxed him in his fight. And Jorge Masvidal boxed his face off when they fought. If you put a lot of pressure and can outbox Donald Cowboy Cerrone, that's been the recipe to beat him. So with all the advantages for Lawler in this fight, for me it was Lawler or nothing. And then I looked at the total. Look, Cowboy Cerrone has 24 finishes, and I think Robbie Lawler had like an 87% finish rate. It seems to me that these guys finish fights a heck of a lot more than they don't, and Cowboy Cerrone has been finished several times himself. Robbie Lawler got knocked out in his last fight. Maybe the under here at a small plus or even at a pick'em price might be the way to go.
See, I won those fights. I like Cerrone. I like him as a fighter, but I don't think he's going to win, and I don't want to bet money on Lawler. Kind of like the Jones-Cormier, where I'll be rooting for Jones, but my money's on Cormier. I don't like doing that, and I don't want to do it again in this fight. So I'm not touching this one. There's some other good values to be found on this card, and we'll get to them in a second. But next up, we have Volkan Esmond fighting Jimmy Manawa, and Manawa minus 170, and you know what? I think he's going to win, but, Volkan's a puncher. You saw in his last fight, he landed that short little right hand without even getting his hips into it, going backwards and got a knockout. So I don't like betting against punchers that are that dangerous.
Last week, you and I were both on Marlon Vera because Kelleher in her last fight was a huge underdog and shouldn't have won. Volkan Oezdemir was a bigger underdog than Kelleher in his last fight. He was a 4-1 underdog versus Cirkunov and then landed that one punch in the first 28 seconds. It's not like he dominated the fight. It's not like he won any rounds. He ended the fight with one punch in 28 seconds. And his fight before that against St. Peru, he was gassed. He was sloppy. The fight
He beat him, though.
He beat him by split decision in a fight that could have gone either way, where they were both completely gassed in the third round. I think Jimmy Manua's recent form, this is the best Jimmy Manua we've ever seen. His trainer laughs when people ask, ever since the Gustafsson fight, where is he now? It's light years better than that.
Yeah, and look at his losses, too, only to the best.
And his last two fights, he fought St. Peru, too. Blasted him, knocked him out. And he's knocking out big-time guys now. And I think Jimmy Manua, he had problems before with his ground game. And because he was so scared of being taken down, it would leave his chin open. And he had some issues. I think his all-around game's gotten a lot better. I don't like to lay favorites too often, but I feel like he should be a bigger favorite here. Like, Oezdemir is getting too much respect for the 28-second knockout over Cirkunov.
So I take it this is one of your personal bets. You put a little.
I
play
bet
down
Jimmy
on
Manua on. Yeah.
Jimmy Manua.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Manua too on this fight. Just not enough to put some money down, because the next fight I do like, and you could get him at a pick'em. It's Ricardo Lamas versus Jason Knight. Lamas has fought for the title. His only losses have been to the best guys, and this is a big step up in competition. I was surprised that I didn't see Knight as even more of an underdog, and this fight's pretty much a pick'em. Were you surprised?
It's actually Knight, a big 125 favorite now. When I left the office, they had bet. I'm going to take my jacket off. It's so hot in here. They had bet Knight up to a minus 125 favorite, and that's when I jumped on Ricardo Lamas. And every time I look at this fight, all I can think about is Frankie Edgar versus Yair Rodriguez. Same division, same kind of situation. A guy coming up, ultra young prospect who's kind of hot. He'd never fought or beat a ranked opponent, suddenly fighting a top 5 guy. I mean, look at Lamas' losses. Current UFC featherweight champion Max Holloway, Lamas went the distance with him. Former featherweight champion Jose Aldo, Lamas went the distance with him. He beat Dennis Bermudez. He beat Cub Swanson, who are both perennial top guys in the division. I mean, Ricardo Lamas is for real. You know what you're getting here. And at 35, look, he's trying to be the next Frankie Edgar. Get that 3rd title shot. Uriah Faber, get that 3rd title shot by keep pushing forward. This is a really important fight for him, and he's coming off a really impressive win where he choked out Charles Oliveira. I mean, the biggest win on Jason Knight's resume is beating Chaz Skelly in a fight where he was losing, and he came back and knocked him out in the 3rd.
Yeah, and the main reason I like Lamas here to pick him is he's a better wrestler. I think of a worst case scenario, he's not getting the best of the stand-up. He could fall back on his wrestling. He could get takedowns. He could steal rounds. And I see worst case scenario, Lamas win decision. Best case scenario, a knockout or submission.
And Lamas may not have the output on his striking that Knight does, but he has a power puncher. I mean, remember when he head kicked Diego Sanchez? And, he's blasted a few guys out.
That's a steal right here. Ricardo Lamas at a pick'em versus Jason Knight, or even a little plus money now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got it plus 105.
I took your advice. I got him before we started taping the show at plus 105. And I added a little something to my bets. The only other fight I'm betting, everyone pay attention. The former champion, Renan Barão, is a pick'em against Aljamain Sterling. He was even at a little plus money. I got him at pretty much a pick'em, but Renan Barão, he's only lost to the best. TJ Dillashaw had his number. He's lost to him twice. Other than that, he's been perfect, except when he fought Jeremy Stephens, who's a 155er.
Stepping up in weight, yeah.
Who came down to 45 and went up a weight class. So fighting a bigger, stronger guy who is a puncher. He lost a decision, and he's a pick'em here against Aljamain Sterling. And look at Aljamain Sterling's losses. Rafael Assunção, he lost to a close fight, but Renan Barão's like a stronger, harder-hitting, bigger, better version of Assunção. And I like him in this fight. Who else did Sterling lose to?
Brian Caraway.
Yes, Brian Caraway out-grappled him. But I saw a red flag when I saw Barão. I thought he'd be at least a 2-1 favorite. He's a pick'em. And red light went off, said, take that. That's your biggest bet of the card. That's my biggest liability right there. I got the most on him. And I like him a lot. That's how much I like him in this fight.
And this fight opened to pick him. We took a couple of big bets on Sterling, and I think the market overreacted. And it went all the way up to like Sterling 145. And as soon as it did, and that like plus 125 or 120 was there on Barão, then we took a bunch of Barão money back on the other side. I'm leaving this fight alone. The one thing I did like about Renan Barão, because I was a little nervous that he might get out wrestled by Aljamain, and Aljamain could beat him in maybe a less than exciting fight by getting top position, because Aljamain's pretty good on top and uses positioning to keep you down. He's not a devastating ground and pound, but he's really good at getting you down and then keeping you there. Was at the press conference today when they were doing the stare downs. Aljamain was doing a bunch of talking, and Barão came out trying to shake hands, and Aljamain was trying to be serious and doing a little chirping at him. And you finally saw a little emotion from Renan Barão, who's like, "Ooh, yo, I'm super scared of you, Aljamain," and was teasing him. And I feel like suddenly he's got a little chippiness, and he needs it sometimes, Renan Barão, because he's just so technical, and he just, A, B, C, this is what I do, and maybe he needs to get mad and try to hurt somebody in there.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? He held the title for so long. He has a lot of fights.
Beat Uriah Faber twice, easily, both times.
Destroyed him. And I expected him to just be a little older than him. When I checked him out again today, I'm like, oh my God, he's only 30 years old.
Yeah.
Like, he could still have maybe his best years ahead of him. And he was so dominant in that division. I just think a former champion it's not like he's a former champion who's too old and slowed down. Everyone's been beating his ass. One guy had his number. Another guy who was bigger than him won decision. So I really thought, you know what, out of all the fights on this card, to me, this one makes the most sense, has the most value. going.
I would
Barao,
only
going
bet
heavy
Hen and Barao. And the only reason I'm not, and I probably will bet Barao, I don't know that I'm going to bet it big, but I would never bet Aljamain Sterling in this spot as a favorite.
I mean, he's not dangerous.
No.
He's not going to submit Barao. He's not going to knock him out. He's not a puncher. And if anyone's getting stopped in this fight, it's Sterling.
I do like that fight team. I do like Sarah Longo. I know some people don't.
Me too.
But I just have a respect for that team. Like, we bet Weidman last week, and he got home, and I have a respect for that team. I think they actually do a good job of game planning. Like Weidman last week, look, he was going to get knocked out if he tried to stand and trade, so he kept taking the fight down. Look, he got a great choke out of it. I think they're going to tell Aljamain Sterling the same thing.
Yeah.
You got to get this
Good
fight to
game
the
plan.
ground. And
Don't stand up with this guy.
yeah, you can't stand up. But this guy's too much of a creative striker. We've seen it. We saw his spin kick over Michael McDonald. And
I thought Aljamain's wrestling would be good enough to get a Sunsao down. He really couldn't.
yeah, he couldn't. And Caraway, too. I mean, Caraway's not a striker. They're both grinders, and Caraway out-wrestled him and out-grappled him.
Yeah.
Won every, won every
out-wrestled him
scramble
big
there.
time.
Yeah, won all the scrambles. So, look, I remember when Aljamain was a super prospect, and I think there's still some lingering effects of that super prospect title, but he certainly hasn't lived up to it.
That's true. Next up, Brian Ortega versus Renato Moicano. And this fight has been going back and forth. Moicano, slight favorite now, minus 140. Brian Ortega, he's good. He's tough. And both these guys are undefeated. And Ortega was his last fight or the fight before he tested positive for juice, so he's got a no contest on there.
I think it was the Guida fight or
No.
after the Guida. He hasn't fought since Guida.
Yeah, no, he hasn't. But that fight still counts as a win, a knockout win. But
He has been out for a while, so that Guida fight was over 12 months ago. I feel like he got a suspension after that fight. Yeah, I don't remember. I know he's been out now over 12 months since the Guida fight. I love Brian Ortega in this fight.
Guida fight was a year ago. Before that, he choked out Diego Brandao, and
Thiago
before that,
Tavares.
he knocked out Thiago Tavares, and before that, he tested positive for juice against Mike De La Torre, a fight which he won easily in the first minute and a half of the first round.
I really like Brian T-City Ortega in this fight. Look, I think that his grappling's better than people realize, and I think as a young, up-and-coming, undefeated fighter, at some point, you need to run into trouble. You can't just keep cruising through every fight, and I feel like he did run into trouble in his last fight. Clay Guida was winning that fight. He won the first 2 rounds of that fight. Ortega did a good job of staying in the fight, staying calm, having juice left in the 3rd round, and then him being the aggressor, getting that awesome knee knockout to come back and win a fight where you're losing. And that's where Aljamain Sterling has failed, right? He was a super prospect too, undefeated, and when things weren't going his way, he wasn't able to turn it around. The one time it wasn't going Ortega's way, he was able to turn it around, still score a big win. And look at his wins. All 3 of his last wins in the UFC, all finishes, all over guys we all know. Thiago Tavares, Diego Brandao, who was ranked at one time. I mean, those are pretty, and Clay Guida, those are pretty impressive finishes.
Yeah, it is. So Brian Ortega, plus 120. There may be some value in that.
And Moicano, everyone talks about, his striking's pretty technical. He has 0 career knockouts. His striking's so technical, he has 0 knockouts ever.
That's a hell of a point. Now, in the rest of the undercard, there's some a couple 3-1 favorites in here, but no one I really fell in love with. I was trying to look up and hard for a good dog to bet on this undercard. The only thing I thought was that, Josh Berkman against Drew Dober. Dober is a 55er coming up in weight. Berkman is a welterweight. But remember, Berkman's last fight, after he got knocked out, he took his gloves off and said,
That's
this is it, I retired.
Yes.
So is Berkman's heart really in this? Is he going to go out there, and did he train really hard? Is he in shape? Is he prepared? Or is he just saying, okay, I got one more fight on the contract, might as well get a payday?
I thought the same thing as you. Josh Berkman, look, Drew Dober's not a very good fighter here. This is a career journeyman. And I thought, wow, Josh Berkman at that price, I'm going to take a shot. He's going to be the bigger guy. At least maybe he can out-wrestle him, too.
Yeah.
But then I remembered the same thing you did. This guy retired, didn't he? Just like his last fight. So I don't know what he's doing here. You're coming back to be on the bottom of a pay-per-view card, and maybe it's just because he wants to fight in California. But I don't want anything to do with
Me
it because
neither.
I don't know what the situation is.
Yeah, I think it was one of those things. Well, you retired. Hey, there's one more fight. You don't want to hear your show money?
Yeah,
Come collect a
that's
check.
right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what does he care if he's already retired or hanging it up? What's one more?
And the only other one I looked to try to find a reason to bet against was Andre Touchy-Feely. I mean, I like his name. It's funny, Touchy-Feely. But he's been finished a bunch of times, right? He's had some trouble when he tries to step up, but usually these are the kind of fights where he does get the job done.
Yeah, I wanted too. I wanted to bet Calvin Kattar. He's got a nickname of the New England finishing machine. Or
Yeah,
the Boston finishing
machine, yeah.
But all his wins have been by decisions.
Yes.
He doesn't finish anyone. So I don't know how they got that nickname. And me too. I was looking for a reason to bet him, but I look at him. He's not a puncher. He's not dangerous. He doesn't finish people. And I thought, okay, maybe he's a wrestler. He'll get takedowns. Maybe he'll win a decision. But no, he's like a tall, skinny guy. Doesn't have the best wrestling, strongest hips. And I couldn't find a reason to bet him. I wanted to, but couldn't find a reason.
Me too, yeah. Because Feely's one of those guys, for whatever reason, whether it's his nickname or he does have an exciting style, he tends to finish you or get finished, and he's lost every time he steps up. So I said, maybe we can find a way to beat Touchy-Feely, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I left all those bottom 4 fights alone. I did think about taking a shot with Jared Brooks. It was minus 140 earlier in the week, but now that it's 160, I just don't know that he's a proven enough commodity for me to want to lay that price. If I could have got the 140 it was a few days ago, or if it goes back down for some reason to 140, I would consider Jared Brooks at 140 or less, but 160, 170, I'm leaving it alone. I may have missed the boat there, so...
So in review, my biggest value bet of the night is getting Hainenbrow as a pick'em. I like Lamas, pretty much a pick'em too. Slight plus money now, actually. And other than that, just a little something on DC. I'm going to be rooting for Jones, but what the hell? At plus 240, I thought that was a steal. He's a talented guy. Olympic wrestler. His first fight with Jones, I mean, it was pretty close, and he's been, that's his only loss, and that's been with him these last 2 years. We'll see.
Yeah, I got a big bet on John Jones, and Tyron Woodley may be one of the 2 or 3 most confident I've ever been in a $2 favorite. I really love Tyron Woodley in this spot. It's hard for me to envisioning Demian Maia winning this fight. I mean, he just doesn't beat wrestlers. Weidman, Munoz, Jake Shields. I mean, Jake Shields doesn't even beat anyone. He grounded out Maia. It's or at least not in the UFC. Jake at the end wasn't winning many UFC fights. I'm sure he's having success at WSOF now, but yeah, this feels like there's too many disadvantages, and Demian Maia is a lot closer to 40. You know, he's just about there. And this is a 4-week camp for him. He just fought in May. This is a really fast turnaround for Demian Maia. It's not just all the advantages that Tyron Woodley has. It's a 4-week camp to get ready for this fight for Demian Maia. I think Tyron Woodley as minus 210 might be as confident as I've ever been in a 210 favorite. And then I laid the money, too, with Jimmy Manawa. I played the under in Cerrone Lawler just because they both have such huge finishing percentages and tend to get finished themselves when they lose. I bet Ricardo Lamas along with you, and I really like T-City, Brian Ortega. When I was making odds for this, I thought he was going to be the 160 favorite. I don't understand all the love for Cano in this situation. T-City's a better striker, a bigger guy. Yeah, I just feel like he should be the favorite here. He's the one that's beaten the names and finished them.
Yeah, and you could get him at plus money.
Yeah.
Well, there's Matt's picks. There's my picks. Hope you guys enjoy UFC 214 this Saturday. Thanks for joining on the final round. We'll see you next time.